I'm so sick of this life. I just want to be free to decide what I do and where I go. I'm not free. I'm a slave. They can do with me whatever they want. Keep me, sell me, beat me or punish me. More than likely, these were the thoughts of a young slave in Colossus, a small town in the area which today is a part of Turkey. His name was Onesimus. He belonged to a rich man called Philemon. Actually, Onesimus did not have it all bad in Philemon's house. But he was a slave and he wanted to be free. The longer he thought about it, the more dissatisfied he became. Until one day he decided, I'm leaving my master. I'm going to get away from here. Onesimus began to plan what he would do and waited for a good opportunity to escape. Without realizing it, Onesimus was actually getting further away from freedom. He was rebelling against his master. This rebellion, discontentment, had wrapped themselves around his heart like chains. They ruin our relationships with other people. The longer they keep us prisoners, the lonelier we become. They take away all the joy in life. They block our relationship with God. They make us think more and more about ourselves and less about others. They ruin our emotions and make us jealous, full of hatred and want to get back at others when they have hurt us. Maybe no one sees your rebellion and your discontentment, or how they are like chains in your life. You cannot free yourself from these chains. For the Lord searches all hearts and understands all the intent of the thoughts. 1 Chronicles chapter 28 verse 9. In each person there is what can be seen on the outside, the visible, and what cannot be seen on the inside, the invisible. The part where our thoughts and emotions come from, and they affect how we behave on the outside. Often Philemon had many guests in his home. The followers of Jesus met there to worship God. When the guests arrived, there were always a lot of activity in the house, and it would be easy to escape. Maybe it was one of those days when Onesimus found an opportunity, and he ran away. Onesimus rushed through the streets he knew, left the city and started a long hike towards the Mediterranean Sea. He was in a real hurry to get away. Back in those days, runaway slaves who got caught were returned to the master and severely punished. Onesimus must have been relieved when he finally saw the sea and the big sailing ships in the distance. They sail long distance across the sea to faraway countries and cities. Freedom was close. Once he arrived at the harbor, Onesimus started to look for a suitable ship. Excuse me, where is your ship going? When are you leaving the harbor?
Tomorrow morning, we will leave for Italy.
Thoughts were spinning in Onesimus' head. Italy, Rome. That's where the emperor lives. Perfect! There Onesimus could live the free life he wanted, without someone always telling him what to do. Freedom was waiting for him there. Without hesitating, Onesimus picked this destination. The sea voyage took several weeks, but Onesimus finally arrived in Rome. Finally, I made it! Here I'm free, totally free! Nobody here knows about my past. Here I can do whatever I want. Here I can enjoy my freedom! Soon Onesimus realized that in Rome nothing was free. If he wanted to eat, he needed money, and to get money, he needed to work. He could do whatever he wanted, but he needed food, clothes, and somewhere to live. He had thought life as a free man would be easier than this. But then Onesimus met a remarkable old man in Rome. This man lived in his home, but he was a prisoner there. He was guarded by a soldier and chained up at all times. He had to stay in his home and could not come and go as he wanted. On the outside, he was not free, but he was free inside. His heart, his thoughts, and his feelings were free from the chains of rebellion and discontentment, free from hatred and envy and wanting to get his own back on others. He radiated real, true freedom and showed it in his life. Onesimus was not his only guest. A small group of people met there. What Onesimus heard there surprised him. So that happened in Rome as well. Just like at Philemon's house, followers of Jesus met here. One day, when Onesimus was visiting Paul, he realized, I also need Jesus Christ. Although I don't live as a slave anymore, I don't live a truly free life. What kept Onesimus prisoner inside and deprived him from true freedom? His guilty conscience whenever he thought about his master Philemon. Injustice from the past made him guilty before the Lord. Wanting new things all the time discontented him. Most of the time he looked out for his own interests and had a little consideration for others. The feeling to be a loser or other negative feelings. Onesimus wanted to become free from the invisible chains which tied his life, his feelings, and his thoughts. Do you remember what the Lord tells us in the Holy Bible about true freedom? So if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. The Gospel of John, chapter 8, verses 36. So Onesimus asked Jesus Christ to forgive his sins and to set him free indeed, free from his invisible chains. If you wish, you can become free today, truly free. Speak to Jesus about what keeps you in chains on the inside. Ask Jesus to forgive you and to make you truly free. Onesimus' life changed after Jesus had set him free. It was so good to live on Jesus' side. Onesimus decided to take care of Paul like a son would have cared for his father. In spite of all that had happened, something still bothered Onesimus. His past. Would it be a good idea to talk to Paul about it? The punishment Onesimus would face might be very severe when the truth came out. But he had to talk about it, so he told Paul the whole story. Paul probably said something like this.
Onesimus, you have settled things with God. Jesus have given you true freedom. That's very good. But you also have to settle things with Philemon.
In a very serious and sad voice, Paul would have continued.
You have to go back to Philemon. For months now, your master has to go without your work, although he once paid for you.
Preparations were made for Onesimus' trip back to Philemon. Tychicus was to accompany him. He was to take in a letter from Paul to the Christians in Colossus. Paul also wrote a letter to Philemon. Then it was time to say goodbye. Do you feel like Onesimus? Does something you did in the past still bother you? Is there someone with whom you have to settle things, like Onesimus with Philemon? Maybe you told a lie to your mom or dad and knew it was wrong. Talk to them and say sorry. On his long sea voyage, Onesimus had plenty of time to imagine what it would be like to meet his master again. It must have been a very difficult trip for Onesimus. What will my punishment be? Was the frightening question on his mind. What a good thing that Onesimus could pray and tell Jesus about his worries and fears. Even the longest trip eventually comes to an end. When they finally arrived at Philemon's house and knocked on the door, Philemon opened it and could hardly believe what he saw. Tychicus and his slave Onesimus were there. What a good thing that they had Paul's letter to Philemon with them.
I appeal to you for my son Onesimus, whom I have begotten while in my chains, who once was unprofitable to you, but now is profitable to you and to me. For perhaps he departed for a while for this purpose, that you might receive him forever, no longer as a slave, but more than a slave, a beloved brother. Receive him as you would me. But if he has wronged you and owes you anything, put that on my account. I, Paul, am writing with my own hand. I will repay.
Surely Philemon was very surprised to hear this news. The Bible doesn't tell us what happened to Onesimus following after that, though I would imagine that after reading Paul's letter, Philemon forgave him and was happy to have him back in his house. One thing is certain though, Onesimus found true freedom, freedom from guilt, freedom to live with a clear conscience before God and other people, freedom to think more about others than of himself. Only Jesus can give this freedom. Have you found this freedom for yourself? If not, now you know how to find it.